This is the Anything Goes Project video stream. Please be patient, the show will begin momentarily. Remember, the show can be reached via email at stalkermailbox@gmail.com, or simply call in and leave us a voicemail at 361-433-5739. If you like the show, please subscribe and leave us a rating. This helps the show to be seen. More video streams can be found on the Anything Goes Project YouTube channel. To help the show, subscribe and like the channel. The Anything Goes Project can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher Radio, or anywhere you get your podcast media from. You're listening to the Anything Goes Project. Interesting topics, interesting things. Real stories by real people. Your host is Mike. The Anything Goes Project is a production of M&C Designs. Be advised, this show may not be suitable for all ages. Many of the topics are for mature audiences only. The explicit tag is there for a reason. If you would like to contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com, or leave us a message at 361-433-5739. And now, on with the show.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mike with the Anything Goes Project, and tonight I have an awesome guest for you. As you know, my show is about talking to people from different cultures, different faiths, just everything. I want to talk to everybody because I value the opinions of people. Tonight, my guest is Rabbi Ilan Glazer, and he is passionate about ending the stigma of addiction in the Jewish world and helping Jews in recovery and their loved ones find sobriety and serenity one day at a time. He believes that life is a beautiful journey, and learning and growth and suffering can be transformed into joy. And everyone contains miracles within them waiting to be born. Rabbi Ilan is the author of a #1 best-selling book, and God Created Recovery. I can hold that book up real quick.
Sure, here it is.
And God Created Recovery, Jewish wisdom to help you break free from your addiction, heal your wounds, and unleash your inner freedom. He is the founder of Our Jewish Recovery and Shatterproof ambassador and family program instructor. He is a member and director at large of the National Speakers Association, DC chapter. Rabbi Ilan teaches widely about healing, recovery, grief, mourning, happiness, spirituality, and success in all areas of life. And he is a freelance recovery and transformation coach and an accomplished storyteller, musician, and the host of Torah of Life podcast. And he lives in Silver Spring, Maryland with his wife, Sherri, and their cat, Taylor. Ilan, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here because, as I said in the intro, I'm interested in talking to people of all different backgrounds. And speaking to somebody who is a rabbi within the Jewish community isn't something I get asked to do a lot. I get speakers that are coming to me from the Christian faith, or from one background or another. And I've had a few that were a Muslim. I've had a few Buddhists and stuff, but I like to hear the stories from people from all backgrounds, because I feel as we get these stories, we start to learn what it is that makes us all human beings and interact with one another, and to treat each other with compassion and love. And to get to that point, we have to know who it is we're interacting with. So, like I said, thank you for asking to come on the show. I appreciate it.
No, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell me what it is that you're doing with helping people with addictions, because that is something that I feel is strongly needed in society today.
It is. So what I'm doing now has been sort of the culmination of years of my own personal recovery. I've got about 5 years of recovery from addiction myself, and happy to go into that. And as I was going into recovery and doing a lot of healing work with a sponsor, with a coach, with a rabbi, with meetings and fellowships and all sorts of things, I noticed that there really wasn't much out there in the Jewish world around recovery. There's a great organization in Los Angeles that has a in-person and outpatient rehab. And people say, oh, well, they're out there. It's called Beit Tshuva. Well, we know about them. And I said, well, that's great. But if you don't need inpatient rehab in Los Angeles, they're actually not helpful, right? And I went to visit. They do great work, but they're not trying to be a national movement. And there's one, maybe two other organizations that have sort of tried to do it over the years. And for whatever reason, it's just not been happening. And if you go on Amazon and you put in Christianity and recovery, sobriety, addiction, whatever, you get thousands of books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds and hundreds of books. There are retreats all the time. There are conferences and workshops and seminars and podcasts, and all of that's wonderful. And if you put in Judaism and addiction, recovery, sobriety, serenity on Amazon, you get maybe 15 books, some of which you have to scroll to like the 27th page of the search results to find. Some of them are out of print. Some of them I don't really resonate with. And there's no national movement. And so what I'm trying to do now is trying to build the foundation of this movement, because ultimately I want people to know that there are resources within the Jewish world. And I have to create some of those because nobody has really done that. So I'm trying to create the network where Jews in recovery and their loved ones can learn more about addiction and what it is and how to be healthy. And I want ultimately to, right, I started a Facebook group for people to connect. I wrote this book. I want to create a Jewish recovery podcast. I want to create mandatory trainings for every rabbi and cantor and Jewish educator throughout the country and ultimately across the world to really understand what these issues are so that they can know what the warning signs are, right? Why is there no Jewish recovery podcast? I don't know. Nobody's created it yet, so I'm going to start that. Why is there no sober Jewish cruise every summer? Sober cruising is already a thing, right? So it can't be that hard to connect with a boat and say, hey, can I have 50 spaces and I'll bring some people and we'll have a wonderful time together, right? Yeah. My wife and I went on our honeymoon last year and we went on a Mediterranean cruise. And from the minute we stepped on the ship, they were trying to sell us alcohol. Yeah. And all sorts of other things that we didn't end up buying. And for people in recovery, that's too tempting, right? Why should we have to do that? And so there are now sober cruises where people in recovery could go and have meetings and learn on the ship and visit beautiful parts of the world. Well, why shouldn't there be a Jewish one? Why shouldn't there be a multi-faith one? I don't know. For whatever reason, nobody's done it yet. So I'm trying to build a space to say that it's no longer appropriate for Jews or any cultural group, because this issue affects all of us, of course, right? It's no longer okay for us to say this doesn't happen in our community. Yeah. Of course it happens in our community.
And do you think it's possibly there's like a stigma attached to it, why the community itself isn't wanting to come out and admit that, hey, we got a problem?
There is tremendous stigma throughout the whole world, and certainly in minority cultures, where it's seen as embarrassing the family if you come out and say that you have problems, right? And there's a sense that we don't air our dirty laundry in public because we don't know who's listening. And to be fair, with a history of persecution and exile from a number of countries, there's a sense that like we don't talk about things publicly because God forbid we get kicked out and have to move again. Yeah. And I understand that, but ultimately our people are suffering, and some of them, way too many of them, are dying. And for us to bury our head in the sands just because we don't want to confront the unfortunate reality that this is our problem too, it's not really acceptable, and it's not working, right? Because what happens is, right, when we don't talk about these issues, the people who struggle with these issues feel like they can't be fully themselves in Jewish spaces, right? And I have this crazy idea, tell me if I'm wrong. I have this crazy idea that religion at its core is about helping people find community and strength to deal with the challenges of life. Does that sound crazy to you?
No, makes sense.
Right. So if we're not actually talking about the challenges of life, and if we're not actually providing community and support for people to go through it, I think we've got a bit of a problem.
Yeah. And especially because you think about this addiction, uh, STDs, whatever it is, they are blind to your culture, your background,
Sure.
your religion, your faith. It can hit anybody at any particular time. And to not acknowledge them is to basically let it go untreated and just to let it blossoms and just becomes its own thing. Like you said, people don't want to talk about it. Well, for fear of persecution, because I can understand in your situation where if you admit as a culture we got a problem, the other rest of society is going to go, we knew it, or try to say
Right.
something, and
Right.
it's wrong for society as a whole to do that, because yeah, there may be a problem with sobriety in Jewish community, but have you looked at the rest of America?
Indeed. Indeed.
Uh, I mean, just go to any gas station and watch for 5 minutes.
Right. Right. I mean, I was at a gas station just yesterday, and a woman came in and she bought $40 of lottery tickets. And
Oh, and that's an addiction in itself.
right, and I'm not here to, be a screen against the lottery. I'm sure some people win, but most people don't. And I think it's very similar to why people drink and why people do drugs and why people smoke and why people gamble. It's a sense that maybe the next thing will really fix me.
Or it's looking for a sense of fulfillment, a sense of escape
Yep,
from their current reality.
for sure.
And I've talked to so many people about addictions, whether it's with alcohol, porn addiction. That's a big one nowadays. I'm a member of a lot of men's groups, and that
Mhm.
seems to be a topic that comes up a lot. These guys saying, well, I've got this addiction and everything. They need to do this and this and make it harder for me to get on. And I'm like, no, they don't need to make it harder for you to get on. You need to own the fact that you have a problem.
Right.
Because if you don't own it, you're never going to own it.
Right. I mean, you can't get better unless you're willing to say enough.
Absolutely.
Can't
And
get better unless you're willing to say, I'm going to do, as hard as I have worked to feed my addiction, now I need to work even harder to feed my sobriety.
and as much as I hate to say it, because there's a lot of things about the AA program that I've actually looked into and talked to people that have gone through it that don't quite like, but their first step is absolutely correct. Admit you have a problem.
Right.
If you can't admit you have a problem, you can sit there and talk to somebody all day long, and it's like beating a dead horse.
For sure.
And so,
For
yeah,
sure.
hats off to you for doing this, man, because this is something that is needed. Because, like I said, these things break cultural ties, binds, or anything like that. This is a human epidemic or a problem across humanity.
Absolutely.
And so awesome. And you wrote your book on this. We'll talk about your book real quick. Hold it up again real quick so people on the video can see it. And okay, it's in God Created Recovery. So tell me a little bit about the writing process, because that's something I'm fascinated with as well, because I'm a published author too, and I love talking to other writers and getting
Sure.
into their heads and finding out their process, how they got to this point where it's now a book.
So how did I get to this point? So my process was a little bit interesting. I mean, everybody's process is challenging or interesting. And from what I've heard, it's easier to write the second book than it is to write the first.
Oh,
Right. And,
absolutely.
and, and that makes sense to me. So I had been thinking for years about writing a book or three. And I had an idea for a different one, for a few other ones actually, and I just never did anything with them. But when I moved to Silver Spring, Maryland, where I live now 2 years ago, and I joined the National Speakers Association, and I finished a coaching certification. And all of my speaker friends said that if you want to be a good speaker, if you want to make a name for yourself, you have to write a book. A book is the new business card today, right? People think it gives you credibility. Right? And people say, oh, well, you're a published author. That must mean that a publishing house has found you valuable, not realizing that, I don't know, 80% of books are self-published on Amazon today, right? But it doesn't matter. Let people think that, right? It's great.
It's like, hey, cool.
Right? So I said, okay, well, what book do I write? I honestly wasn't sure. And they asked me a few questions, and they said things like, well, what really makes you mad in the world? And what's a problem that you want to be known for fixing? And I'd been doing all this recovery work and feeling this gap there. And I thought, okay, there are more books in me to write, but this is a good place for me to start, to really take my recovery hat, my coaching hat, my rabbi hat, and blend them all together so that I can really just be me and put that in a book. And I wanted to write the book that I wished I had been able to read as I was going through my early recovery. Because the reality is, it's hard, and you need a lot of inspiration to change your life. And a teacher of mine used to say that transformation is like changing the tire on the car while you're still driving it. And it's true, right? Think about that image for a second. Obviously, you can't do that, right? But transformation is hard work. And so I came to understand that I needed to write a book. And I also came to understand that left to my own devices, it wasn't going to happen. Because let's face it, I'm not the most disciplined, I'm not the most organized, and what do I actually know about writing a book? So I joined a book writing program. I spent a lot of money to join this program. And it was a 3-month program, and they held my feet to the fire and gave me good coaching and a proofreader and someone who could help me figure out, what are the chapters like, and how's this book going to be organized, and what do I need to put in it, and what are the steps to writing a good book? And one of the reason why they have you spend a lot of money to do this kind of program is A, because they can, and B, because it gave them leverage over my insecurities.
Yeah.
Right? It gave me a reason.
It gave you somebody that was going to now hold you accountable to the task.
Right.
Yeah. And writing fiction versus a nonfiction book, I just had an author on the other night, and she does a lot of books that are in the nonfiction field. And her and I got to talking about it, and we were discussing the differences between a nonfiction and a fiction book. It's a totally different, because when I'm a fiction writer, I can sit down and I can just type away and make things up all day long. However, I've also working on some nonfiction pieces, and oh my word, the amount of research that you have to do to go into it, because it's a nonfiction book. Not only are you being held accountable by this group that's helping you write it, you're going to be held accountable by society by what you put in this book. So
right. And are they going to like it? And am I going to mess up a footnote and misquote somebody, which probably has happened? Nobody's yelled at me for a footnote yet, but I suspect that if someone were to do real research, I might have messed up one. There's probably still a typo or two somewhere there that I didn't catch.
I don't worry about typos, because I've read books that were written by Stephen King that have gone through some of the top publishing houses in the world. There's still typos in that book.
For sure.
And people think I'm insane when I say it, but every time I find one, I'll go ahead and circle it and I send it to them. So see, this was in a Stephen King book. So you're going to sit there and go off on me because I didn't do I before E except after C.
Right. I like what Robert Kiyosaki says about Rich Dad, Poor Dad in his other books. And he says, I never said it was going to be the most well-written book. I just said it was going to be a best-selling book, and it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read that book.
All right. If the content is good, people will buy it, and they'll forgive you for being human.
It's not the best podcast in the world, but I got people listening.
Right. It's great. Right. So I think, and that's For me, that's a huge piece of what I had to learn while writing this book, is that it's not going to be perfect and everybody messes things up. And, I left out the year of the copyright in it. I just put in the little symbol and forgot to write 2019. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Right.
And, some authors are so meticulous about their books. And like you said, the first book is hardest. And I'll agree with that 100% because we want to try to make it so perfect.
Right.
My second book, it was like third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Right.
I've done 6 books, and it was like the first one took me longer than the rest of them.
Sure.
And the rest of them, I was like, there's a typo. So what?
Right. All right. I'll fix it in the next round.
Not with me doing mine digitally, I just fix it and re-upload it.
Which is great. Right.
It gets an update.
Sure.
So, well, okay, you wrote your book on recovery and addiction, but you mentioned earlier at the beginning that you had gone through some trials and tribulations yourself. And you said you wouldn't mind going into them because I feel that that's kind of necessary at this point to give our listeners a perspective that, hey, you are a human being too. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes, you make mistakes, but it's about admitting we had made a mistake, learning from those mistakes, recovering, adapting, and overcoming.
For sure. So I'm happy to share. I got into addiction at a very young age, and I didn't know that it was addiction. Right? I grew up. My father was a rabbi, also of congregations, 10 different synagogues over the course of 44 years. We moved around quite a bit, and my mother was a Jewish day school teacher and later on a principal of Jewish day schools. And they had I think it's fair to say, fairly dysfunctional marriage, and things were not always happy between them. And we moved around, and that caused a lot of stress. And they had 4 kids and 2 miscarriages, and that caused a lot of stress. And my mom had a lot of medical challenges. After my older brother was born, she was diagnosed with sclerosing cholangitis and ulcerative colitis and possibly Crohn's. They were never sure. And over the course of her life had 5 different forms of cancer and 2 different liver transplants. And yeah, she used to say that she had 2 speeds in life, fast forward and reverse. And it was true. When she was functional, she was totally go get 'em, more energy than anybody as sick as she was should have. And when she was sick, she got really sick. And of course that took a toll on her. And of course it's not easy to be, in a body that's not working as well as you want it to. And she was also a professional baker on the side, right? And she would sell desserts sometimes. And I'll say this, when I and my siblings had our bar and bat mitzvahs, where we invited the entire congregation of, I think there were 750 people that came to mine, she made the desserts for the entire weekend.
Wow.
Right? Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday dinner, Sunday brunch, and it was remarkable. And she was that good. And one of the things that I learned was that there was no emotion that couldn't be solved with the right amount of sugar. And
I can vouch for that. If my wife bakes me a cake, I'm all good.
For sure, right? And listen, there's nothing wrong with enjoying food, right? But in my case, I started from a very young age. I became the kid who would finish everybody else's meal because there were starving children in Africa. How starving children in Africa would feel better by me stuffing my face, I never quite understood.
I was told the exact same thing. You need to finish that. There's kids in Africa that would love to have that. Well, and my answer to that was, then send it to them.
Right.
I don't like lima beans.
Right. So I ate a lot, and there's no question that my mother, basically everybody in my family, my father too, and my siblings, we all learned to eat as children. And because my mother was a baker, she taught us to bake as well. So I learned from a young age how to bake these amazing desserts, and I was really good. But of course, I would eat all of these desserts too, and then I would gain weight. And then I'd feel bad about gaining weight, and then I'd get yelled at for gaining weight, and I would feel bad about getting yelled at about gaining weight, but my only answer to feeling bad
Was eat again.
Right. And so I was just chasing the high. And of course, after the high is the low. Right. And I did that for many, many years. And again, didn't know that that was a thing called addiction. I just figured, okay, I'm sad, cookies make me feel better, I'll have another one. Right. But then we kept moving and I kept growing. And when you get to middle school, the boys and girls are wondering about the birds and the bees. And I remember when I was in 8th grade, there were a bunch of guys, we were out in the back of the schoolyard, and somebody went to throw something in the garbage can. And they looked into the garbage can for whatever reason, I don't know, and they saw that there was a pornographic magazine in the garbage can. And they pulled it out and showed it around, and everybody oohed and awed and snickered, as little, adolescent boys will do. And at one point, they threw it back in the garbage can and everybody left. Well, after everybody left, I went back to the garbage can and I took it out and I took it home with me.
Ooh.
Because something clicked on. Because what I learned about romance and relationships from my parents, from my mother, I learned that my job was to find a nice Jewish woman who was doing good work in the world, put her on a pedestal, and give her everything that she wants, because men are kind of jerks. And that was my dating wisdom, which, as I later came to understand, was not actually very wise.
No.
Right? How do you go from, I think you're cute, to, can we go out, to, like, what do you say and how does that work? And I was incredibly shy and didn't have a good sense of my own body image, and my confidence was never good. And like how was I supposed to find this person? And what did I need to do to put them on that pedestal and get them to marry me so that I could have the magical fairy tale ending that I thought would come? It was never entirely clear.
Yeah.
And, I saw my parents yelling at each other a lot and being unhappy with each other. And the first time I really heard my dad talking about sex was to my high school youth group, which I will say was more than a little mortifying. And so I didn't have good models, but I found pornography, and hey, it didn't matter that I was shy, because I could read and I could watch and I could see things, and I could pretend like the people in the books or the magazines or the movies are caring about me, when of course they're not, but we all sort of pretend sometimes. Right? And I used that for years to mask my own insecurities. And there's no question that when I felt bad, I could either go to the kitchen, or I could go to the bedroom, or I could go watch something on television, or I could play a game, or I could listen to music, or do anything to distract myself from being alone with myself.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that about the food addiction, because I talk to a lot of people on this podcast and in other groups. And food addiction is something that never comes up. I was surprised when you said it was food addiction, because a lot of people don't consider food as something that you can be addicted to. Yet, if you look at the current statistics in the United States, we have an obesity epidemic in this country due to the such easy access to foods that aren't healthy for us, foods that just trigger that satisfaction need, because as we know with addictions, and I'm pretty sure you did the research on this too, with addictions, when you get finally whatever it is that you are addicted to, it triggers a chemical in the brain, your endorphins, which give you that natural high. And that can be with anything. If you're one of these people that gets an endorphin rush from doing artwork, or eating a donut, or smoking a heroin pipe, everybody is a unique individual, and it's whatever can get them that high is what can become their crutch and their addiction. Like I said, I'm so glad that you mentioned food addiction, because I've talked to several health coaches on this show, and they never actually mentioned food addiction, but they did talk about alcohol abuse and things
Mhm.
like that. And I see it. I've seen that child that is walking around a Walmart holding a bag of Cheetos, and I'm like, wow, that kid is 10 years old. He weighs more than I do.
Right.
And it's like and in my mind, I'm not thinking ha ha or anything like that. No, I'm thinking that kid's gonna have so many health problems in life if he doesn't get this straightened out right now. Because we're looking at diabetes, high blood pressure, and these are all things that potentially kill you.
For sure.
So
And it's, it's true what you mentioned. Even with some of the addiction organizations that I'm now in touch with, they have a very strong focus on drugs and alcohol.
yeah.
And in the house I grew up in, my mother was very clear. She said, "You will not ever do drugs." And because she knew that alcohol damages the liver and she had liver transplants and didn't want us to have liver damage, she said, "You will not drink alcohol either." So I didn't.
You're like,
Right?
Roger that. I'll eat that cake though.
Right. Like there were so many other things that I could do. And I did. So, again, it started with food and then I went into pornography. And then I developed something which overlapped with the pornography, which is actually called a love addiction. Right. And I became addicted to the fantasy of falling in love with someone. And I would create these stories in my head, right? Somebody could come up to me and they'd say something nice. I'm like, "Ooh, are you the one? Are you the nice person that I'm supposed to fall in love with and
Ah,
crystal?" Right? And I would fall in love with them or who I thought they could be and who I thought I could be with them, right? And I was making up all these stories based on somebody just smiling at me or saying hello or asking me how he was doing. And really I was starved for emotional connection, and I was trying to create it, and it came out in these unhealthy ways. And I picked at my skin a fair amount, still do a little bit. That's an addiction as well, right? I sometimes pulled out some hair. That's an addiction too,
absolutely.
right? I would even in college, I would check my email 60 times a day because maybe somebody needed me to do something, and I'd always feel better about myself when I was doing something for somebody else, right?
How many people are addicted to this?
For sure. For sure. Right. It's very challenging today. And
I'll share a story with you so you can
sure.
kind of relate to this, dealing with the phone. And I've shared this story before, but I feel it's relevant here. I've gone since that point. I've turned off all the notifications on my phone.
Mhm.
I've uninstalled several apps. I still have all the social media stuff on there because I use that for advertising my show. But the
Sure.
notifications are turned off because I found myself one day working on a critical project. I work in the engineering and machining field. And
Okay.
some of the parts that I make are critical. If literally if they break while they're running, it could injure somebody, potentially kill them.
Mhm.
Okay. So I was working on this part, getting everything ready to go. And I hear a ping. I stopped what I was doing to turn around and get my phone. I got about 3 feet from my phone and I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I thought about it a minute, and I literally told myself, "You just had the Pavlovian response to the bell. You're the dog."
Yep.
And I went, "No, no more at this point." So when I got home that evening, I went through the settings on every app on there and turned off the notifications.
That's
You know
very
what?
smart.
If I'm gonna check, if I'm gonna do, I allot myself when I'm gonna allow myself to look at it. Because I was, like you said, just as bad with my email. I've got a client that's going to be getting a hold of me. I need to be on my email to see if they're going to do it. This was back in the days of ICQ and instant the Yahoo Messenger and all
Sure.
those, if you remember that.
Yep.
And I had to catch myself there too, because it was like the kids would be like, "Hey, Dad, can we go outside and play baseball?" I got to check my email.
Right. And what are we missing out on
Mhm.
because we think somebody might need us over email?
Yeah.
right? And
What are we missing out on if we're sitting at a dinner table with friends, family, and relatives, and half the people are like this, just
right?
scrolling through Facebook or doing something? I see that all the time in the restaurants, and I'm like,
All the time. It's crazy.
and I'm like, and in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, sometimes I'll say it out loud because I've got a bad habit of speaking my mind. I'll say it out loud, like, there's a human being sitting right across from you that could probably have a really interesting conversation with.
Yep.
So
It's challenging today, and I'm glad that I at least grew up before smartphones were in the hands of every high schooler in this country.
yeah, me
Right?
too.
Because
I mean, I'm in my 40s. I don't know. How old are you?
turning 40 in a month.
I'm 44. And honestly, I have to say, I am so glad we did not have smartphones
Right.
that had cameras on them, because there would be, no, I don't want all the crap I used to do caught on camera.
For sure. And these devices are marketed to people to get them addicted to them.
Absolutely. Even the apps are. You can't open a social media app without seeing an advertisement for another social media app.
Right. I just deleted a couple weeks ago. I deleted Words with Friends from my phone because I noticed that I was playing it too much.
Yeah.
And
I had that back in 2005, and it was like, ping. Oh, I got to go in there. Somebody got their word.
right. And now they've updated the game, and there's like 20 different levels, and you're chasing the levels.
I didn't know all that. Don't tell me that.
So many different games just to try to get to the next level. I'm like, hang on, this is not actually fun for me anymore.
Yeah,
Right?
whatever happened to the good days of just sitting down with a group of friends at a table, and all of you brought over your D&D characters and your dice and just have fun?
Right. We have definitely lost the art of doing, not everyone, of course, right? But it is so more complicated today with social media. And listen, again, like, we use social media and we use the internet, and anything is a tool for good or for bad.
Absolutely.
I'm not anti-social media. I'm not anti the internet. I'm anti getting so addicted to these things that we lose out on living well.
Yeah. And I like what you said there, the analogy, anything can be used as a tool for good or for bad. I can use a shovel to dig a hole, or I can use a shovel to knock somebody out with.
Right. Everything is a tool. It all depends on how we use it. And, that's, but we have to be conscious about how we're using these things.
Yeah. Now let's roll back to your addiction with food, because, unlike alcohol or drugs, people can quit that stuff cold turkey and just go through rehabs and go through sessions. You can't quit food. You die.
Right.
How do you manage this?
It's challenging, and I'm not going to hold myself up as a paragon of recovery where it comes to food. I'm still, working on my plan like everything else.
Yeah.
The best advice that I have for people is find a really good nutritionist who can help you come up with a food program and a plan that will work for you, right? And including their, if you're going to start exercising, which I recommend for everyone, right? You may need some more calories when you exercise, right? And a good nutritionist can help you work on those things. I definitely recommend, there are recovery groups that work on food. There's Overeaters Anonymous is the main one. There's Food Addicts Anonymous. There's probably a few others, right? And you can work the 12 steps in the food programs. And I do recommend that, because the steps really give you a framework to understand why you turn to food so much in unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
Right? And again, like, the steps don't work for everyone, and some people like one program or a different program, and there are other ways to get recovery than just the traditional programs. But I really do like the steps. They are good questions to be asking yourself. Whatever faith background, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. I think there's real wisdom, and especially in finding a community of people who are all struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, struggling with the same thing, and who are also willing to help you be accountable to yourself.
Correct.
And That is
Absolutely.
always something that I've seen that's really important, an accountability thing. Um, I think it was back in 2001. I grew up around a family of smokers.
Okay.
Everybody smoked.
Sure.
And I always as a kid was like, ew, those stink. I'm never going to do those. As a teenager, you got around your friends. They're like, hey, I got a cigarette. You want one? Sure, I'll take one. One thing leads to another. Now you have a smoking addiction.
Right.
And I got married to my wife. The one thing she told me when we got married, she goes, that's fine if you smoke. If you're not going to smoke in the house, and you can't kiss me.
Hmm.
What? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of this whole get together thing. So I switched to dipping.
Okay.
Just as nasty. I believe it was in 2000, year 2000. I finally just decided, not somebody pestering me and bickering at me, you need to stop, you need to stop. I decided, I need to stop. And I need somebody to hold me accountable to this. So I ended up hooking up with an organization called killthecan.org.
Okay.
And they immediately had somebody call me. It's all volunteer work. They are, as an organization, are set up to help individuals. So I logged into their website, created a user account, and it said, introduce yourself to the forum. Let everybody know how many years you've been addicted to cigarettes and tobacco and dipping. Let everybody know and tell us your story. So I did. And there's a place there for you to enter your phone number in. Within 10 minutes of me leaving that first post on that forum, I had somebody texting me on my phone. I didn't know who it was.
Hmm.
And he was like, hey, man, I'm so glad to see that you're part of our group now and everything. My name is Mick, or I don't even remember what his name was now, because that was 19 years ago now.
Sure.
And my name is such and such. Hey, you know what? You've got a problem. You have my number. If anytime you feel like you can't handle the urges, call me. I'll help you walk through them.
That's great.
And that's what I needed.
It's really remarkable what a community of support can do for people.
Absolutely. And I think that community of support works through pretty much any addiction. Like you said, you had Overeaters Anonymous and these other organizations. One of the men's group I'm actually part of. Actually, you would probably really enjoy that group. It's called Break Through Your Barriers. It's on Facebook.
Okay.
The gentleman that started the group is out of Australia, and he shared his story before. He actually came on my show and shared his story about his porn addiction, and it almost destroyed his marriage.
I believe it.
And now he and his wife, they have fixed their marriage. Now they mentor other couples who are going through similar struggles. And the group is called Break Through Your Barriers. It's the men's group for it.
Nice.
His wife runs the other group.
Sure.
And I get on there and post all the time. He posts all the time. We always talk about different things. I'm sure they would love to have you in the group too, to mentor to people, because we've got people from every background all over the world in that group.
I'll check it out. Thank you.
Okay. So let's carry on with your story. Sorry I interrupted you again.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I'm happy to do so, and happy to hear. These are great resources that you're mentioning. Appreciate it. So I'll fast forward a couple years. I went to college, had a lot of problems in college. I did start dating someone in college. That was new. And I noticed something interesting that I couldn't understand, which was when we were actually in the same room together and I could feel connected to them, I felt better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
The minute they left the room, right? Even if they were just, walking across the hall to go say hello to someone, I started feeling the shame and the guilt and the low self-esteem and the low self-worth and all of that. And I'd feel totally rotten. And I didn't understand that, but it was true. And we were together for 4.5 years. We were engaged. She broke it off because I think she understood that I was a mess long before I did. And no regrets. I'm glad she did, because I was definitely not ready. And I had a few other, I had a few other relationships afterwards, and I became a Jewish environmental educator at a number of retreat centers, which was a lot of fun for me. And then I was actually became a caregiver for my mother for her second liver transplant. I helped her. I took off some time for what I thought was going to be a short amount of time to help her get through it, and ended up being with her for 2 years until she died. And saw a lot of depressing things in hospitals and healthcare settings, and nobody wants to see their loved one in pain, but I would do it again. And all this time, I'm having some relationships that are not so good, and I'm still eating my emotions, and I'm still drowning myself in pornography and ice cream and sodas and sugars and cakes and breads and brownies and picking at my skin and pulling at my hair a little bit, and just not happy. And I didn't know addiction was a thing. I just knew that I wasn't happy. And I figured, well, my mother's sick. When she gets better, I'll be happy, which didn't turn out to be the case. And so after she died, I went to rabbinical school. And in the rabbinical school that I went to, there was a mandatory unit of what's called clinical pastoral education, or CPE, which is training in a hospital or healthcare setting.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I am working as a rabbi. I'm still in school, but I got hired as the rabbi of a synagogue in northern New Jersey that I'd done some work for. And I'm commuting to whichever hospital it was, 1 or 2 days a week to take this course and visit patients and be a resource and a spiritual guide for them. And we had a month-long unit on addiction. And the instructors said to us, pay attention to the kinds of things that the addicts in these movies are saying and doing, so that you can better understand the kinds of things that addicts say and do. And I'm watching these movies, and I'm thinking to myself, hang on a second. Some of the crazy things that they're saying in their heads sound a little bit like crazy things that I'm saying in my head, and what does that mean? And it was the first time, and I was probably in my early 20s, it was my first time that I understood that I could be an addict. And but what did that mean exactly? And I wasn't sure. So at the time I was dating someone, and she had some training around recovery issues, and I said, okay, I got problems with food. I eat a lot. Right? And my girlfriend at the time, she connected me with a healer who said I needed to be on a gluten-free diet, which is not anything I wanted to hear, and give up flour and sugar and dairy, thank you, and start exercising and watch what I'm eating.
Oh, no.
Right? And so, okay, I went to a few overeaters meetings, and okay, I went to the gym like twice and said, well, okay, I'm done exercising now, right? And I didn't really get it, but I was dipping a few toes in, but I wasn't really ready to own it. Well, fast forward a couple years again. I married my girlfriend at the time, and who also became a rabbi, and we moved to Memphis, Tennessee, to co-rabbi at a synagogue together. Which, when we got there, a lot of people said to us that they didn't think it was smart for husbands and wives to be working together, because they said I'd kill my husband if I had to work with him, or vice versa. But we thought it was a nice idea, and it turns out it was not a very good idea for the two of us. Some couples can do it, and
yeah,
it was not the healthiest. And the synagogue had challenges when we got there, and I will say that we'd been married about 1.5 years, I think, when we moved there, and the honeymoon wore off quickly when we started working together. And things were just not going well for me, for us. The synagogue was doing what it needed to, but there was a lot of stress there, and I was unhappy. And I was, again, I was eating my emotions. I was using pornography. I was picking at my skin. I was playing games. I was doing anything I could to distract myself from feeling these feelings. And ended up going to counseling. And the therapist suggested a program called the Healing Trauma Program, which was a week-long retreat at a great center called Onsite, which is outside Nashville. Okay, so I'm game. I'm willing to play around, and I went to Onsite for a week. They take away your cell phone, and you have no contact with the outside world, right? Unless there's a major emergency, which there wasn't. And we spent a week learning about childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. And the more what they call adverse childhood experiences you have, the more likely it is that you're going to have developed some unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we learned about trauma and abuse and shame and guilt and blame and all these feelings. And my mind was totally blown wide open during this week. And I came to understand it wasn't just food I was dealing with. It was all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I was really taken aback. And I'll tell you, there was a funny story from that week. They had asked us to bring in a picture of ourselves as a young child so that we could reconnect with the inner child inside of us. Okay, so I found a picture, was in a frame, and I brought it. And I'm sitting there most days staring at my younger self. And I was smiling, happy in the picture, and I was cute, and I was thin, and I wondered, how did I get back to cute and thin and happy? And I'm trying to reconnect, and it's, I don't know, I'm not the most like meditative mindfulness kind of guy, and like sort of maybe okay. And at one point, I tend to fidget with things when I'm holding them, and I noticed the backing on the picture frame. There was a piece of paper, there was little wood backing, and I took off the wood backing, and I saw on the back of the picture, there was a name written in my mother's handwriting, and the name said Avi, my older brother. And it turns out that I was looking at this picture that wasn't actually me. And I sort of cracked up in that moment, and I said, well, you know you're in trouble when your inner child is somebody else. And I was just like, what more of a sign could I possibly have needed in that moment?
Or your inner child is actually hiding from you and trying to use other people as
right. I was like this, and I shared it with the class, and everybody burst out laughing, including the therapist. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got it. And I realized that I had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Have you, by any chance, spoken with Jennifer Whitaker?
I don't know that name.
She has a podcast. It's called Yes and.
Okay.
I'm gonna send her your information, because what you mentioned is exactly what she does with her clients.
Nice.
She helps them trace back their child to what trauma has got them to where they're at now. That's what she does with her clients and stuff, and works with their traumas, because her and I have had several conversations. Her and I are actually about to do another show because some of these paranormal experiences that we've been talking about, she listened to one of the shows and she goes, you know what, I wonder if some of these can be linked to traumas that people have had in their past, why they're seeing stuff like this.
Interesting.
So we're gonna have a whole conversation about that.
You'll have to let me know when that episode is out. I'll be happy to listen to it.
But yeah, she's I'll get you in touch with her after we get done with the show. I'll connect you with her. But her podcast is all about these types of traumas, and I think she would enjoy having you as a guest.
I appreciate that. I'll be happy to do it.
But yeah, I fully agree with you. Our traumas. And you said you may have seemed like in your mind you had a happy childhood, but now as an adult, you can look back and realize things weren't very copacetic here.
Right. And the reality was, like, it was all I knew, right? It's not like I had a choice as to, like, I couldn't really run
Yeah.
away, though I stormed out of the house once or twice. Like, I couldn't go anywhere. Like, my parents were my parents. They said, okay, we're moving again. And I said, well, darn it, but okay. Like, what was I going to do? Say no? Right? Like, you just got to do what you got to do. And, I'm not, I want to be clear, like, I'm not here to bash my parents. Like,
No,
they
no, no.
were doing
I
the
fully
best they
understand
could.
that.
And I loved my parents. I still do. They, my mom died years ago. My dad died last year, and I miss them both. And there were some wonderful things I learned from them, and there were some not so wonderful things I learned from them.
I'm a parent myself. I can tell you, I've probably screwed my kids up at some point,
Right, right,
but we make mistakes.
for
That's part
sure.
of being human.
Right,
And do I hold my family accountable for the way I turned out? No, I don't.
right,
I had to make changes in my own life to get myself fixed.
sure.
And so that was all on me.
Right, and there comes a day when we just have to say, enough. I got to start living better.
Yeah.
Right, and recovery is what fills in that gap and allows us to live better. And for me, it's given me my life back. It's given me what I didn't have as a kid. It's given me happiness and a sense of inner peace. Not always, and I'm not going to tell you that every day is rainbows and unicorns. I struggle too, right? But I'll put it this way: so let me finish the story, and then I'll come back to this thought, right? So when I understood that I was in trouble if I didn't get help, right? I did a number of things. I went home from that retreat, and I said to my wife at the time, I said, okay, I got issues. Seems to me we both got issues. Let's work on our issues together. And ultimately, we went in a different direction, and it became clear that the marriage was needing to end. And it did, which was really not what I wanted, but necessary because we didn't have the strongest foundation. And she ended up leaving town. I stayed at the synagogue full-time solo. But I remember, I think I went to onsite in November and December. I went to the public library in Memphis, and they've got a used bookstore. And I always, as you can see from the walls behind me, I have a lot of books, right? Which can be an addiction and has been in my life for sometimes. I'm trying to get rid of a bunch of them now and give them new homes. But I went to the bookstore, and I found a book. You know how sometimes you're looking at a shelf, and sometimes a book just catches your eye and almost falls off the shelf on you? Well, there was a book that did that for me. It was called Facing Love Addiction by Pia Mellody, who's done a lot of work on love addiction and codependency. And I bought this book for, I don't know, $3 or whatever the used bookstore price was. And I took it home, and I remember I read the first 70 pages. It was a Friday night. I read the first 70 pages that night, and I finished the next 200 pages this following day. I just couldn't put it down. And I did not understand how she could so clearly understand the inside of my head without ever having met me, right? And it was when I really got, oh, this is why I've been using pornography all these years, because I have these feelings about being in relationships that I feel inadequate. So I numb my feelings with the pornography, because in the pornography, everybody looks amazing, and I don't really have to, put myself out there and be rejected, because nobody on a movie screen rejects you, and you can pretend that you have these relationships with people. And the minute I understood that that's why I was doing that, I was actually able to let pornography go.
Awesome.
Right? And that's not true for everyone, but it was for me. Like, I got that why I was doing that. And I also, I understood it was not healthy for my marriage. And I understood it felt like I was cheating a little bit. And, I wasn't sleeping with anyone else, but it wasn't healthy, and I didn't need to continue that. And so I stopped that, and I started going to the gym. And I went back to the personal growth world, and I went to some great conferences and seminars, and I walked on hot coals, and I swallowed fire, and I went skydiving after the divorce was finalized. And because I wanted to see, what do I got in me here? And I hired a coach to try and figure out who I wanted to be. And I found a sponsor shortly thereafter, and I started working the 12 steps of recovery. And it took me a couple years. especially when it came time to making amends and apologizing for the things that I had done wrong. And there were a bunch of people on that list, and I had to call every one of them, and I did. And I had to work through the shame and the guilt and the low self-esteem and the low self-worth and lack of self-confidence and all of that. And those are not fun issues to work on. And I
No,
understand why people don't want to do this work. It's
yeah,
hard. It's messy. It's ugly.
and make you take a deep inner look at who you are.
For sure.
And so, yeah, I can understand that.
For sure. But I just decided, like, I'm kind of done with this voluntary suffering. Like, if I know that there's a healing option out there for me, I'm gonna take it. And I did. And I stayed at the synagogue. I did a lot of good work. The congregation got better. And ultimately I decided that I was actually a little bit bored. And more than I was bored, I was lonely, because I was doing a lot of good work for people in their 70s and 80s and their grandkids. And there weren't really people my age to talk to. I didn't have many friends. And the day that I took myself out to dinner and a concert on my birthday alone, I said, wait a minute, this is not okay, right? And I was doing good work, and I was making good money, and I was like, everything else was fine. But I was like, I need more of a community in my life. And this is a problem that a lot of clergy have, of all religions and faiths. And not just clergy, politicians, educators, leaders. It's hard. And
they're too busy working on what it is their I guess you could say their profession is, to take a step back and realize, I need to work on my relationship and connection.
Right.
With another human being. For
sure. And so I had started dating someone long distance who lived here in Maryland, and we ended up dating, and we flew back and forth every couple of weeks, and it went to a wonderful place. And we got married a year and a half ago, and I moved here and finished a coaching certification and started my own podcast to provide some wisdom and inspiration in the Jewish world, and do some freelance rabbi work, and then wrote this book, and I'm building this movement. And how I can tell you recovery works is because when my mother died in 2007, I was totally enmeshed. I was totally codependent. I didn't know, and I had been her caregiver for 2 years. I literally did not know what to do with myself. I was in such trauma and shock. And I ate my emotions away. All right. I did everything I could to distract myself from all the feelings. Right. Well, the week after we got married, my dad went into the hospital and ended up being diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And I was able to take the time to be with him for a couple months before he died, and to really have those hard conversations, and to apologize to him, and to forgive him, and to just let him know that I loved him, and to help make his last days on this earth better. And he died, and I was sad, clearly, but I'm okay, right? And instead of running to the grocery store to quote unquote solve my emotions, I can go to a meeting. I can call a friend. I can go for a walk. I can exercise. I can read a book. I can listen to a recovery podcast. I can, just sit and say, oh, I'm feeling sad now, right? That's okay, right? Yeah. Whereas before, it wasn't okay to have these feelings and emotions because they just weren't welcome. And now I have all these tools to say, yeah, okay, I'm feeling something, and it's not the worst thing.
And I think that's what we have a problem with as the society here in America, worldwide, is emotions scare us.
Yep.
We don't want, I tell my daughter all the time, you had a bad day. Fine. So what? You had a bad day. Was yesterday a bad day? No. Tomorrow's probably not going to be a bad day, but you had a bad day today. Great. Why is it bad? And then she would tell me, and then I tell her, now look back at all the good things in your life. There you go. Don't let one thing destroy who you are, set you back. And I'm glad that you were able to come to that point where you had that realization, like, yes, my father just died. I'm sad. Okay. I'm sad.
Right.
I don't have to eat this away. I don't have to drink it away. I don't have to do anything else. I'm sad. Take that time and be sad.
Right. Right. And it's really, it's, had you told me, so this December 19th, that day when I found that book in the bookstore is what I consider day one of my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this December 19th will be 5 years. And had you told me 5 years ago that I would just have written this book about recovery and I'm creating this movement for Jews to really talk about this, I'd say you're out of your mind. Right? Like, A, like who, me, write a book? No. And B, the fact that other people would see the work that I'm doing as valuable, like I couldn't hold that, right? Like you can't think of yourself as a...
And 5 years ago, C would have been, I don't have a problem. What are you talking about?
That too, right? Right. Like I couldn't possibly have comprehended where my life would take me today. And, again, I said this before, is every day great? No. But I know how to flow with myself. I know how to love myself. I know how to let others love me. And thank God I married a wonderful woman, and she's a social worker, which certainly helps, and understands healthcare and these challenges. And, was I worried about the time when I told her my recovery story? Was I worried about her being scared off? Of course I was. Right. And she heard it all and she said, "You're doing good work. I'm still here."
Yeah, and I look at it this way. If somebody's going to truly accept you for who you are, they've got to accept all the baggage you come with.
Right. Right.
And to find somebody that is willing to do that, that's a good thing. I can tell you right now, I am not a perfect human being.
I'm shocked to hear this. My
wife is a saint. I tell her all the time, I don't know how you put up with me because, I'm crazy, right? And she's like, she goes, "Well, I did marry you." And I'm like, okay, we're good then. But hey, we're going on 24. We just had our 24th anniversary.
Wow, very nice.
So
very nice.
Apparently I'm doing something right.
Well, that's great. That's great. May you have many more.
I hope so. My kids don't drive me into an early grave. Oh. I've got 5 children.
Wow.
I'll let you know. Yes, I've got 5 children, and every single one of them have tested my nerves throughout the years. But now let's bring this full circle.
Sure.
You went through all of this, and at no point was there somebody within your own community that you could reach out to during this process?
I found a sponsor through the Jewish world.
Uh-huh.
Thank God, who's still my sponsor, and I talk to him at least once a week. And parts of the Jewish world, when you go to some Jewish conferences, not most of them, but some of them will have recovery meetings, right? Most of them don't. And for the most part, synagogues don't host recovery meetings. And for the most part, the Jewish world doesn't talk about it. So yeah, it felt incredibly isolating to be working on this. And
especially, sorry to interrupt you again, but especially with what you were saying, how you could go onto Amazon and click on Christian recovery, thousands of books.
Yep.
Jewish recovery. 10, 15?
Right. Not so much. And I went to a big church in Memphis. There's a church called Hope Presbyterian Church, and they host a lot of recovery meetings. And I started going to them, and thank God that they do. Right. Yeah. And I kept wondering, like, why are we not doing this? Oh, because we don't want to talk about that. Well, all the more reason why we need to.
Yeah, it's part of the human condition.
Right.
It should be these are topics that should be had at the dinner table. This shouldn't be something that you should have to go on a worldwide search for. This is something that you should be able to turn to a friend and go, "I need help," or turn to a family member, "I need help."
Right.
And it's a sad thing. I see it within where I live at. I'm in the South. So we've got that hardcore evangelical down here.
Sure.
We don't talk about certain subjects. Or they don't. I do.
Right.
I'm sorry. Sex, nope, off the table. Alcohol, nope, off the table. And I've got a joke that I always say, how can you tell the difference between a Methodist and a Baptist? A Methodist will talk to you in the liquor store. And so that's kind of my joke. They don't talk about these things. Texas, where I live at, they don't teach sex education anymore.
Right.
We've got the abstinence-only programs. Texas now has the highest rate of teen pregnancy in the United States.
And are we really surprised?
Nope, absolutely not. My kids have had a sex education. My wife's a nurse. I've had medical training.
Sure.
As an engineer. So we're blunt when it comes to the sex talk. And
Right.
I've had the sex talk with other kids whose parents have brought them over, like, here, please talk to them. I don't know how to do this. And these are conversations we should be having as a whole. Everybody should be having this conversation. You see somebody in need that is hurting, there should be somebody that can be willing to talk to them and help them and point them in the right direction. And yes, again, hats off to you for creating a program within your own community to say, you know what, enough's enough. We got to have this.
Well, thank you. It's been very humbling and rewarding, and almost every time I am invited to speak somewhere, I'll share my story. I'll talk about the book. I'll share some texts about addiction in the Jewish world, because newsflash, this is not a new problem, right? I mean, we have, in a tradition almost 6,000 years old, we have quite a few examples of people doing unfortunate things that go back to the time of the Torah, the Bible. And every time I talk about this, people come up to me afterwards and they say, thank you. We feel so alone. And knowing that you're out there doing this work, we feel seen and heard. Right? Now, I'm not going to, I'm not going to get everybody sober. I'm not going to fix everybody who's out there. Right? But what I want to do is to give people options and resources. Right? I want people to not feel like they're alone in these struggles. Because, when you feel alone, you tend to isolate and you tend to do the things that you really don't need to be doing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, and it's normal and it's natural. And we live in a time when we have way more Facebook friends online than we do actual personal friends that we can talk to. Yeah. Right? We have bigger houses and fewer people to, how many of us know our neighbors today?
I don't, because I live 35 miles from town. I don't have neighbors.
Right. Which, again, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying we've lost a lot of the social bonds and connection that we used to have. Right? You used to have to go to the bank and go to the grocery store and go to the pharmacy and talk to people and interact with people. Now you can just order everything online.
I'm guilty of that. I will tell you that right now. I'm guilty of it. If I can prevent from having to go to town and deal with the people at Walmart or Target or wherever it is, if I can order it on Amazon and have it delivered to my house tomorrow,
right,
it's a done deal.
For sure.
Wipe that sucker.
And again, I'm not opposed to online shopping, especially if people want to buy my book.
Well,
really,
here's social media has been bad for us in that aspect. However, I kind of treat my social media a little bit differently than some people.
Okay.
One, what am I doing right now? I'm connecting with you. You're another human being. We, after getting off this podcast, are probably going to have a connection for the next 10, 15 years.
Great.
I'll be able to send you a message. Hey, Alien, I need to ask you some advice. And you wouldn't have a problem with picking up the phone and calling me.
Nope, not at all.
And that's how I use my social media. I connect with people. I talk to them one-on-one. However, the majority of the society is not out for using their social media that way. They're there to see how many likes, how many times somebody's going to tap that like button for this picture of a salad that they just took, that they're not even going to eat the salad. They're going to eat the pizza that's not even in the picture.
Right. And then right, you notice, of course, that we tend to only post the happy stuff on Facebook, right?
Absolutely.
So
I just oh, go ahead.
no, like we scroll through and we see everybody else's vacation pictures and we compare their best days to our worst days. And we wonder what's wrong with us that we're not on vacation all the time. Well, neither are they, but that's just what we see.
I just recently read an article where they interviewed some of the top Instagram figures.
Okay.
These are the people that are actually making an income with Instagram, with the likes and the advertising and all this stuff. And you go to their Instagram pages and you go through all their pictures and everything, and it's always like, and people who are listening can't see me, I'm holding up a phone, but they're all like, hey, look at me, I'm over the Grand Canyon. Now today I'm over in Thailand and I'm doing this and I'm having a Mai Tai with so and so. And that everything about that they do is glamorized. It's so, and everybody looking at it is like, ooh, I gotta like that. Ooh, I wish I could do that. They talk to these individuals off of Instagram. They're probably some of the most miserable people you would ever meet. They admitted suffering from depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts and tendencies because they had no real connection with these millions of people that were following them.
Right.
Outside of those people, they had no connection.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad how many people feel so lonely today, right?
Mhm.
And suicide has been on the rise in a major way in this country, and it's terrible, right? I mean, what we really need is to rethink what community means.
Yeah.
And we have advertisers, and we have social media people and influencers, and even some politicians who are trying to tear us apart instead of trying to bring us together and remind us
we don't want to go into a political.
Well, we don't need to go there, but I'm just saying, like, again, I'm not opposed to politics. I'm opposed to anyone, reminding us that we are less than who we can be.
I'm opposed to anybody that tries to divide us just because they think difference is bad, and that one version of different is superior than another version of different.
Right.
And I'm totally opposed to that. I don't care which side of the political spectrum you fall on. If you want to be treated like a human being, then you need to start treating people like human beings.
100%, my friend.
We're all on this little blue dot together.
Yep.
And we're going to go down with it. Especially if we don't fix it.
That too, for sure. Yeah.
We can do a whole nother show on environmentalism.
I'm with you.
Well, man, we're almost coming up on an hour and a half. It's been a great talk. I've enjoyed this. Well, let's use this time right here because I want you to reach out to my listeners. Tell them if somebody is struggling, they have a problem. And I'm sure, and just from talking to you, I'm sure it doesn't matter to you what background they're with.
Not at all.
Whether they're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, black, white, yellow, brown, whatever. If they've got a problem, they can reach out to you and you'd be willing to help.
Absolutely.
And so use this time. I want you to give out the information of how my listeners or anybody listening to this or watching this video can get a hold of you if they just need to talk, have somebody to help them, lift them up. Because I feel that is extremely important. I give out my information at the end of every one of these. If somebody just wants to call me, please do it.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. And I'll be certainly more than happy to connect with anyone who thinks that I can be helpful to them. And so what I do is so people can find me in a few different ways, right? For people who want to read the book and hear more of my story, and I work through each of the 12 steps from a Jewish lens, and I add in extra stories and commentaries and what does it mean today. And certainly people are welcome to pick up the book on Amazon. As a friend of mine likes to say, I wrote it, it's good. And I say that with all modesty and humility, of course. But I also, I do coach people, and I work with people who need help, whether they are the person with the addiction, or the family member, or the loved one, or the friend who wants to know how best to support them. And I'm really trying to create programs for both sides, because often the person with the addiction can get help from a doctor and a therapist and a psychiatrist and a rehab and whatever else, or a hospital, and the loved ones often don't know how to think about this. How do we support our loved ones when they're in recovery, or when they're not in recovery, right? And these are challenging topics that we don't talk about enough, as you've said. So I work both with families to help support their loved ones, and I also work with the people who have come to understand that unless they do something differently, their life is not going to be what they want it to be, right? And the people who are willing to do the work, right, to do the hard work of recovery, those are some of the best people I know, who are willing to say, that's it. I need to fight through this, and I need to be the better person that I know is inside me. And so what I do is I work with people to help them understand that where they are currently does not have to be who they become, right? And we are more than the worst things we've done. We are more than our traumas. We are more than our wounds. We are more than our addictions. We ultimately, I believe, are children of God. We are sparks of divinity and holiness, unique on this planet, right? There's only one of each one of us, right? So my job is to help uplift people, to coach people, to give people practical tools, not just airy-fairy stuff that's out there today, but actual practical tools, and to help people think about how can they design a life that supports them and the vision that they have for themselves, right? And I'm truly blessed to do this work with a lot of wonderful people, and it's an honor for me to do this work. And every time I do this work, it benefits my own recovery, of course, right? The more I give back, the more I get. And I will be doing this work, for the rest of my time on this planet. So people can find the book on Amazon. They can reach out to me by email. They can Rabbi Ilan at torahoflife.com. I'm sure you can share it in the show notes. I'd appreciate that. And because it's hard to spell a little bit. And I have a Facebook group called Our Jewish Recovery. We welcome non-Jews as well. Anyone is welcome, as long as they agree to confidentiality and respect in the group. We welcome people who want to learn more. And I'm more than happy to come to communities and talk about these things, either from a religious perspective or not, right? And I'm happy to just talk about the steps. I'm happy to talk about faith and spirituality and what does it mean to be happy and holy and healthy in the world today, right? I feel like those are the questions that I'm pondering. I believe in sharing the best of our religious and spiritual traditions to uplift people and to remind us that we are greater than we think we are. And that if we're still here, it's because there's some work that we're still here to do, right? There's a great quote that a famous rabbi once shared. He said, the day you were born is the day God decided the world couldn't go on without you any longer. Now, whatever faith tradition you come from, right, doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you're open to wisdom, that you're open to becoming someone who you can fall in love with. Yeah. Right? That you're even open to the possibility of healing. And I know at the beginning, I couldn't have dreamed up any of this stuff, right? But you just take one step after another, one day after another, right? And you find a meeting to go to, you find a group of people you can connect with, and you start putting new habits in place, and you start thinking new things, and you start working with coaches. I mean, I have a whole team of people that I work with. I've got a coach and a sponsor and a spiritual director and a healer and a therapist and a wife and great friends. Like, it takes a whole team to keep my head on straight sometimes. And I'm fine with that, right? It's just what I need, right? And I believe so strongly that everybody would benefit from having people who could just help them be their best selves, right? To hold us accountable to who we want to become. Right? When we fight for our wounds, we get to keep them. Right? The question is, are we willing to fight for the future that we want? Yeah. And it takes hard work. And if I can be a guide, if I can be a resource, if I can just be a connection for any of your listeners, it's my honor to do so. And people are welcome to email me, call me, text me, email me. My phone number, I'll give out my cell phone number, 732-735-8287. People are absolutely welcome to reach out to me if I can be helpful in any way. It's, I consider it a real gift whenever I'm able to be a guiding light for others, just as so many are for me.
Yeah.
Truly, welcome anyone reaching out to me.
And it has been an absolute honor having you on the show today. It's very rare that I find somebody who is genuine with their compassion for other human beings and the way that they feel about these things. And you're not coming from this of a standpoint of like, you just decided one day I want to have a career as a coach and you've never had to have any problems or anything. I'm just going to become a coach. You went through the hardships first. You followed the steps. You've made it to where you're at now. You've released your book. And now you're using that knowledge and that wisdom to assist people and to help them and to, in essence, let people know that you have value and there are other people here that are willing to help you. And that's the whole essence of all this, is I want all my listeners to realize you may just be listening to me on a podcast, but just know that in my heart, you are valued by not just me, but by Ilan and some of the other people that we've had on this show. We value you as a human being. You hold a place on this planet that has value to us. And so we want you to be able to reach out to us. And thank you once again for coming on the show. And to any of my listeners, if you need to get a hold of me, you can contact me at my email address, stalkermailbox@gmail.com. Don't laugh. I see you laughing.
It's great.
And our hotline number is 361-433-5739. And once again, that's 361-433-5739. And that, just call in, leave us a message. If you want to be able to get a hold of me, if you need to get a hold of Ilan and you don't exactly know how to get around all these interwebs and stuff, send me a message. I'll get you connected to him. So with that, Ilan, do you have anything, final statements you want to say before we cut this short?
Well, just again, want to appreciate you for having me on. It's been a pleasure to connect with you, and I look forward to listening to your show. I've listened to a few episodes, and I'll keep listening. And this has been really, really lovely. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing here.
Well, we can definitely get weird on this show at times. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Rabbi Ilan Glazer, thank you for coming on the show. Contact us if you need anything. We're out of here tonight.
Now, here comes the music.
We want to thank you for tuning in to the Anything Goes project. If you like this show, subscribe and share it. That would greatly help us out. To contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com. We love hearing from our subscribers and our listeners. The Anything Goes project can be found on iTunes, CastBox, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and many other Android applications. And once again, thanks for listening.